Welcome to the, what was the name again?
Can we joke about it?
All right, welcome to the Can We Joke About It podcast with your hosts Shmuli and Yehuda, where we joke about the things that should make us cry, and we cry about the things that we should laugh about. All in all, we're just here to have a good time and just see what happens. This is the inaugural episode. In this episode, we kind of just want to talk about who we are, our journeys, and what prompted us on the decision to start this podcast. So, Shmuley, do you want to start? Do you want to take it away?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had an idea for a podcast a number of years ago that I didn't think I would ever do, and I never will do because it's a little bit inappropriate. But it would be a podcast where we discuss with people who are successful what motivates
Are
them.
you talking about what makes you hard?
Yeah, it's called What Gets You Hard.
What gets you hard? Okay.
That would have been the name of the podcast. So instead of doing that, when Yehuda reached out to me recently and said, I think we could. I was like, not only am I down, I already had an idea and I love it. Let's freaking do it. So the idea is that the mindset that I like to live my life is that if I take things seriously, then by having fun and joking around about them and through them and around them, not only do I get to enjoy my life, but it makes the thing sustainable. It makes the hard work that I put in sustainable because now I'm actually enjoying myself while doing it.
Yeah, and you haven't had the easiest life. We grew up together, and if you want to go into a little bit about our backgrounds, we can definitely go into that. Definitely more of a unique situation, but you definitely do have a bit of more a unique outlook on life just due to your experiences that the average person at your age has not encountered. I'm looking forward to you sharing it, your story, but I do want to thank you for joining me here on the casting couch and seeing what kind of magic
Just to clarify, there's a lot of space between us, so I'm just, yeah.
There's always room for a third,
Oh boy.
but I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Me too. Yeah. I'll say that I'm very happy that we're doing this. I'm very excited. I feel a little bit put on the spot right now, which is okay. Well, one of the things that I kept joking around about yesterday was like, how funny is ADHD? And that's just a good place to start.
You know what ADHD stands for, actually?
I think it stands for attention deficit hyperactive disorder. If I got that right.
That's one thing, but no, the way that I like to put it, and I'm also diagnosed with ADHD. What feels very right to me is attention deficit. Hey, donuts.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
I think I had this rabbi in yeshiva who would call it. He would be like, "Yeah, the guy was diagnosed with everything. He had the ADHD, LMNOP."
sounds like some other. Okay, but we're not gonna go there.
Yeah, we're not gonna say names,
We're not trying to get canceled.
but he was also your rabbi at a certain point.
Trying to think of who it was now.
He'd do this thing where he'd pinch this part of your hand when he shakes your hand.
Oh, he was a good rabbi though.
He was very good. Yeah, he was great.
He was abusive, but everybody loved him.
abusive.
Correct. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're wrong. We were talking about someone else.
We're not talking about the
Give me your hand. He would shake your hand
Okay.
and go like this.
You sure it's not the same person?
Definitely.
Okay, because I have one person in mind. So
It wasn't from the first yeshiva we went to. It was from
Oh.
the second one that we weren't at the same time.
that one.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, talking about the first yeshiva we were at, the Rebbeim, they were weird. I remember this one Rebbe. Oh my God. If you misbehaved during the assembly, you remember the Friday afternoon assemblies?
Oh, yeah. Can't forget him.
Right? And if you misbehaved, you were talking, he would pull you out and give you purple nurple.
Really?
You don't remember that?
I don't remember that.
I remember
That's
that.
not good.
Like, looking back, I'm like, was that sexual assault? Was I sexually assaulted as a child? I mean, it would make sense. It would explain so much other stuff.
It would. It would. I did not know that happened. I remember those Friday assemblies, though. So I remember the first time I got drunk was on a Purim in 6th grade. And what I had done was I went to a party with my parents, my family, and I realized that everyone was a little bit all over the place. So I figured that no one would notice if I drank. So I took this 96% alcohol that my mom used for making chocolate liqueur. I poured it into a cup about up to here, and then covered the rest in wine and cherry liquor to disguise the look, so that if anyone does notice, they'll think it's wine. And I just chugged it, and I was 11 years old. And I got very drunk that day, and I remember swearing to myself that I would do this forever, because it was the first time I ever felt happy in my life. And then the next day, when I got back to school, everyone knew what I did because I had made a lot of phone calls that night from my house at like 12 at night. I tried to get through to everybody in my class and either ask them for a bracha or give them a bracha. And because it was 12 o'clock, I got through to their parents instead of them. So the next day I came to school, and at the Friday assembly, the rabbi did mention it. But it was kind of a joke. Like, he was like, and Weisler got drunk. I was like, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it's like when you're in elementary school and you want to be that cool kid, so you take the apple juice and you pretend it's beer and
Yeah.
you start acting drunk. It's like that scene in Family Guy where he has a cold, he's taking the cold medication, he starts acting drunk and starts like hitting on Brian aggressively.
I did that in I think when I was 8 years old. I drank a couple of bottles of grape juice on Purim, and the sugar rush made me think I was drunk, and I ran around like a crazy person telling everyone I was drunk.
I mean, to be fair, it's not our fault. At 8 days old, they give us alcohol.
And you know
what do they expect?
I answered this on one of my stories. People were asking me like a lot of details about my life, and they said, do you remember when you were born? I said, no, I don't remember when I was born, but it was quite traumatic. You came out
I
was a C-section, and I had no pidyon ben because of that, and it was very traumatic. And I said, I won't even mention what happened when I was 8 days old, but let's just say it's the day I started drinking.
Yeah, I don't say we all come out kicking and screaming, But talking about the whole drinking thing, today's actually a big day for you on that. You are officially 10 years sober.
Yeah,
and that's a very big deal, right? I've never had a problem with alcohol. When I was younger and I found myself having hard days, I did tend to just like, I'm stressed out, I'll have a drink. But I never had problems with it. That being said, I am as of now 1 month sober because, cut down on things that don't really serve you, including alcohol. But 10 years sober is a massive milestone.
Thank God. Yeah, it's a bit different from the kind of detox that you're doing to yourself, which is fantastic. Like, what you're doing is clearing your body of things that it doesn't need in order to gain the success that you mentioned that your goal is to get a 6-pack by June.
By April 1st, or I have to pay someone $3,000, and he is not taking a penny from me.
That's an expensive 6-pack. I hope you get your goal, and I'm glad that you're doing what you need to do in order to get it, and by detoxing from these things.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go from a little bit of a keg to a 6-pack.
Hey, tell me about it. I'm doing my best here.
You're a dad, though. You get to pull it off. You got the dad bod.
I don't want to be. I want to be the only dad who doesn't have a dad bod. Well, I wouldn't be the only one, but I want to be the one. I don't know. I'm in my 30s. I want to be fit. I want to feel good.
Yeah, I mean, and then I want to go back to you being 10 years sober. But something that I've really been internalizing lately is how you do anything is how you do everything.
Right.
And the standards. Right, the standards that you set for yourself are the standards that you expect out of life. And among those standards is your health, which is something, especially in the States, so many people ignore. Right? What is it? 46% obesity rate?
Something like that.
But ultimately, the standard that you set for your health really tells a lot about you as a person. Are you disciplined? Are you driven? Are you ambitious? And
so my mindset with health and essentially with a lot of things, I wouldn't say my mindset is always like this. My mindset at the end of the day, my long-term mindset is that consistency is the most important part of any growth. That, for example, when I started working, I was working with my trainer about probably 4 years ago, and we were all part of the same friend group. Um, and I was laughing one day, and I came late, and you know, and he was doing a stretch on me, and I think I farted right in his face, like, and then he got me back, and he mentioned to me during that session, like, he said, you know, so and so just started working out with me, and he's super serious, like he's there on time, and he's there on time. He won't make jokes during the sessions. I said he's not gonna last, like, and he really didn't. And he's a great guy, and he's got plenty of successes in his life. But with the working out with this trainer, he did not last. And I'm still working out with him years later. We've been working out together for almost 5 years because consistency is key. And that's my whole idea about joking about things. Like, if we can make jokes and we can have fun, but I'm there every day and I'm there consistently, and I'm gonna be there consistently, and there's always what to improve. Like, I know that at work right now, they're very focused on being on time. And I love that. It puts a discipline to the things.
Yeah.
It's a very, very important detail that I guess I didn't value before then.
I agree on that. I was actually hanging out with a friend of mine last night, and we were talking a little bit about, like, she just made Aliyah, which is a massive transitory period in someone's life, and she's kind of trying to figure out what should she do with now that she's here, what should she do for a job, career, stuff like that. And she was talking about me, the fact, like, I've been self-employed pretty much my entire professional career. The only real job I had was in sales before I went out, struck out on my own, started my own company. And she asked me, she was, how do you stay motivated? And I told her motivation is bullshit. Right? Motivation is that thing when you're doom scrolling on Instagram at 3 a.m. and you see a video with hype music. The guy is at the gym, and you're like, oh my God, I'm so motivated. Tomorrow I'm going to go to the gym. Tomorrow I'm going to do this at work. Tomorrow I'm going to ask that girl out. Right? You feel motivated. And then morning comes, you wake up, and then you do the same shit that you did yesterday, the day before, the month before, the year before.
Yeah.
Motivation is fleeting. And if you rely on motivation to get anything done, you are never going to get anything done. Getting things done is just, it's about showing up. It's about, fuck, I really don't want to do this today. Like, right, like, as part of, like, my journey, is to get the six pack, to get in better shape. There are days where I will finish my calls with clients at 2:30, 3 a.m. and all I want to do is sleep. I just, like, I'm tired. I want to go to sleep. But no, I got to go for my run now. I don't feel like fucking doing it. But it's about the consistency. Motivation doesn't work.
I always say, like, motivation, it's like being in this room. It's like I live in this room, and instead of lights, there's a skylight. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's light, sometimes it's rainy and dark, and that's just my life. And I have zero control over whether I'm going to have a good day or a bad day. That's what relying on motivation is like. And, like, my whole thing, like, if you check out my Instagram, it's called Sam KOBK, and it's KOBK stands for Kill or Be Killed.
Okay.
And it's a little childish, but kill or be killed means that some days you kill it, some days you get killed. And if you just keep showing up, you're going to be successful. You're going to be doing what you need to do. And the whole idea, the whole slogan of KOBK is we don't rely on hype.
No.
We don't rely on that, because if you learn how to work hard, whether you feel like it or not, you have found the golden ticket. That's the golden goose. That means you found the light switch in the room that you could decide whether you're going to have a good day or a bad day. Some days are tough. Are not necessarily bad days. I would say that in the last few weeks, I mentioned to people, I had the hardest week in years, but I had such a good week.
I mean, I've had this past year has been the hardest year of my life. From dealing with my dad dying.
Yeah.
1 year ago. And not only dying, he died on my favorite holiday. Hanukkah is my favorite Jewish holiday. Just, it's super nostalgic for me. And, he died. And then, it's actually funny. I remember last year, right? I'm in Colombia. I'm in my apartment. It's like 2 a.m., whatever it is. I'm in bed. And I'm talking to this Israeli girl. We're on FaceTime. And I'm telling her, I'm actually planning on coming in like 2-3 months to see my dad. And we're talking, we're laughing, having a good time. And then my mom calls me. And I'm like, and I had just been in Israel a month previously, seeing my dad, seeing my mom, being in the hospital over Shabbos with my dad, all that stuff. And then my mom calls me 2 a.m. and I'm like, that's not a good call. That's not a good call. And my mom's like, Tati passed. And like I had expected it, right? I had said goodbye to my father long before he passed. He was sick for a very long time. Towards the end, like he had dementia, like he didn't recognize me, which super painful. But and then it just like it hit me. I remember just like calling my brother or him calling me. He's in the car. He's on the way back from a wedding with his wife. He's in the car, and I remember I just started crying, right? And to be fair, I don't even know if I've even processed my dad's death fully. Because from there, I immediately got thrown into the worst heartbreak of my life. Like where my heart was completely shattered. And it's just been a year of very, very difficult year. But like looking back, right, it's about how you choose, like you said, it's how you choose to frame it. Good days, bad days, they come and they go. And like looking back, I am so grateful of this year, the experiences that I've gone through, the hardship that I've gone through, because I am a better man for it. The growth that I've gone through, the realizations about myself that I've gone through, the things that I was forced to confront, just have been so impactful that like it's just about, like you said, it's just about showing up and taking things as they come and just being grateful for the good and the bad.
Yeah. I yeah, I remember this moment. It was a few months after COVID started.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hadn't had the easiest time up until COVID. I had been going through a divorce, and it was a messy, messy, messy one.
I remember that.
And I was broken and shattered, and I was also broke, which just makes things harder. It's like insult to injury.
Yeah.
And I was working a commission only job where I was finally starting to do well, and I hired my first salesman underneath me, and he was finally starting to do well, and I was very excited. And I was living at the time in the basement of a rehab facility, in exchange for volunteering upstairs. Um, and COVID started, and I knew COVID was gonna last 2 weeks, and it was gonna be some stupid scare that everyone freaks out about. It was gonna be a bunch of bullshit. And I had clients calling me saying we're worried about this trip in April and this, and I was like, COVID's over in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, it's over. I promise you. And then my whole world just fell apart. Everything I knew just fell apart.
Man, it changed the world as we know it, right? And like especially for you, going through, you're going through a divorce, there's a child involved, which makes it even more complicated and difficult. And then having your support systems due to COVID just stripped away because now everyone's hunkered down. You can't, you're having a really, you're just in your head. You can't text your friend like, hey man, like I'm really in my head right now. Can we go out for dinner? You weren't even able to do that.
Right. So I had other outlets, thank God. I had my sober community, and we were on Zoom like
Mm-hmm.
4 times a day if needed. Um, But I just remember that I didn't have money to go on a bus to go see my son. And
Yeah.
it was 2 months that I didn't see him. And I was in that basement on my laptop, hustling and working. I decided to open a business. I was broken. I was broken, broken, broken. I had applied for unemployment from the United States, which I wasn't supposed to be doing from Israel, allegedly, allegedly. And I got caught and had to pay the money back anyway, so I don't really care.
Ouch.
But I was waiting for the money to come through, and I was broke. Like I was eating from upstairs. I had no money for food. I had no money for a bus. I didn't want to ask for handouts, and I was still getting help from a couple of friends, and I still didn't have money. And I remember talking to God and asking like, I don't know what you want from me. And I went into my room, and I went into the corner of the room and sat on the floor with my hands over my head, and I just cried and cried, and I didn't understand what God wants from me until I finally realized a minute later, I realized that very simply put, God just happens to believe in me more than I believe in myself at the moment.
Yeah, I saw this quote actually this morning, and it's very, very true. It's a cliche quote, but it's the teacher is silent during the test,
Right.
right? God knows what we're capable of, right? There's this artist, this musician that I've just been binging his music lately, just resonates a lot with me, Jelly Roll. And he has this lyric of, I asked God for calmer waters, he sent me higher waves. Right? God doesn't give us what we're not capable of.
So I'd like to respectfully disagree.
Okay. In what way?
Two things that you said. I don't think we're in a test because I don't remember getting the lesson. You get a test after you get a lesson. This is part of the lesson. This is part of life. Life is where I get to learn things, and if I choose to look at everything as a horrible experience, like a quote I've heard many times, what's it called? Like either life is happening to me or for me. You know,
Yes.
like I don't think life is a test. I don't think God is quiet. I think He's quiet when we push Him out.
I would agree on that. Something I did a couple months ago. I was not in the greatest place, right? I was still struggling with, with the events from this past year. And I turned to God. I'm like, God, I don't know if I can handle this. Like, I am so scared. And like I verbally said, I'm like, God, I don't know, but I invite you into my life. Now, as you know, I'm not religious, right? We both grew up yeshivish or yeshivish adjacent, right? I mean, high school. God damn, that was an intense place. For context, you and I both went to a really, really yeshivish place for high school.
Yep.
And it's just interesting how life turned out. Like I was saying, like for me, right? Like I was really struggling a couple months ago. And like how I invited God, I verbally invited God, I verbally invited Hashem. I'm like, look, I'm scared, I'm struggling with this. This year has been hard for me. Help me.
Yeah.
And since then, like I've genuinely felt enormous peace when it comes to the various situations and things that I have to navigate in my life. Right? We're like now looking back, and instead of resenting people who have hurt me or resenting experiences, I look at it and I'm like, I'm so grateful that happened.
Right.
Because, like, for example, with this, and then I want to go back to, we kind of went on like a donut rant, the ADHD donut rant, but on a tangent. But I want to go back to, the whole 10-year sobriety thing, because that really is something usually you should be proud of. But, like with this whole, intense situation that I had with, everything that I've been dealing with this year, and it's like, I'm looking back and I'm like, I've really transformed because of it, right? Where now, like, I'm at that point where, like, I, I date with intention. I'm not trying to make something work that I know deep down is wrong for me. Like this past situation, I like I knew deep down it was wrong for me, but I tried so hard to make it work, even after it was clear that she didn't want it to work and that I should have walked away long ago. And I'm so grateful for that lesson of like, okay, this is what I need from someone. This is how I need to show up to someone. And it's just really, like inviting God into everything really
Yeah.
gives you the clarity of it may suck now, but hey, it's going to be all right.
Right. That's what I wanted to disagree with you on as well. Like that whole thing, that whole concept of God only gives us things that we can handle. Like for me, and again, just for me, I would like to respectfully disagree, because I remember this moment when I was going through my divorce. It was 2 days before I was scheduled to give the get, and I had phone calls with two people in Australia, one from Melbourne and one from Sydney, about moving there, and them helping set me up.
What is it about Australia? I swear, I have this other friend.
It seems like a magical faraway land.
Dude, I have this friend who, and if you're watching this, I apologize in advance if I spill a little bit too much. I'm gonna try to keep, she was dating this guy who, frankly, did not deserve her. Okay, she knows my opinion on him. He's a piece of shit. Okay, and she really deserves the best. And she's struggling with it. She knows she deserves better, but she's not able to fully detach. And like, I'm just there for her when she needs to vent. And like, I understand, like we've been there, but she's also thinking, she's like, I'm done. I'm going to Australia. Like, I can't handle this anymore.
It just seemed like the furthest place in the world that I can go besides Mars, and Elon hasn't figured that out yet. So,
I mean, we're almost there. We're almost there.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
5 years ago,
well, here's the thing.
we were even further away from it. So,
well, here's the thing. Are you ready to eat food made from your own poop, grown in your own poop?
Yeah, you see what I eat. You guys see what I put on my freaking stories. I put everything tastes good to me. I don't care what I eat, as long as it gives me the nutrients I need to get my muscles. I'm good.
Okay.
Anyways,
what
I was
muscles?
planning on going to Australia. I was planning on going to Australia, and I spoke to my friend then at that moment, and what's it called? And I freaked out at him on the phone. I said, I don't understand. It was funny. He gave a get the same week. I said, I don't.
The same
people
way.
Keep telling me
the same way, meaning what?
The same week.
Oh, the same week. I think you said the same way.
Like literally a day before me, or 2 days before me. We were kind of going through this together, and I said to him, I said, I got to move to Australia, and he said, why don't you just wait a couple of days until you make that decision. You're giving it again on Tuesday. Just wait on Tuesday. Wait till Tuesday. And I said, you know what? I said, I don't understand. People keep telling me God gives you only what you can handle. I was like, I am not handling this, and I don't feel like I'm capable of handling this. I feel like if there were two less things going on in my life right now, I'd be able to handle them. But there's just too much. And I'm not physically capable of handling it. And he didn't, hold on, he didn't answer me. He just kind of heard me out. And I walked away, and I stewed, and I kind of let things settle. And I paused, which I found out is one of the most important tools in life, is the capability to pause. Like the ability to
just stop.
Just stop.
Yeah.
And pausing could mean a year, and pausing could mean a second. Pausing and inviting God into it, like you said. But in that moment, I realized that for myself, I said, God does not expect me to handle things. God does not only throw things at me that I can handle. God throws things at me that I cannot handle. However, God always gives me the choice to grow or to fail from something. And that's a fact for me.
Well,
everything that God throws at me, I can choose to grow or to fail. There's nothing that He throws at me that I'm forced to just turn the other way and say I give up.
I'm gonna challenge that, and think about it like an idea of the gym, where you work out until failure. That's kind of what God does to us. He puts us in moments where we feel like we can't handle it, where we just want to crawl in a hole and say, fuck it, I'm done. It's us working out until failure, until we can't anymore. And when we work out until failure, literally you think I can't do that. I literally can't pick this weight up anymore. Even if it's 5 pounds, I can't. Like, my arms, they're noodles. But then you stop. And like you said, it's so important to stop. You stop. You take the next day off from the gym. And then the muscles heal themselves. And they strengthen. It's the same thing here. We at the moment we feel like we can't do any more. But it's us just working out until failure. And then we come back stronger, right? We have a 100% track record of getting through our worst days. Those days where you're like, I don't know how I can continue, somehow you did.
No, some days I crashed.
But you still came out of it. You still came back.
The message that I got from God only gives you things you can handle was that it's your job to handle everything. And I don't think that's always the case.
No, it's not our job to always handle everything.
It's my job to be a mensch.
It's your job.
I'm going through a really hard time.
It's your job to be a man. It's your job to deal with it the best you can. And sometimes dealing with it the best you can is not dealing with it at all. But that is still a method of handling it. Something that
we're calling the same. We're agreeing. We're just calling it different things.
Fair enough. The way that I look at it is, if we were given something we couldn't handle, we would jump off a bridge. It's just too much. The fact that you have gone through some horrible shit, and yet you are still here on this couch with me. That sounds so dirty. I love it.
Especially about the horrible shit.
Don't start putting... Okay, we're not going to go there. But the fact that you are still here means, in some capacity, you handled it.
Right. Fair. Mm-hmm. I guess it kind of goes back on what I was saying before about consistency and just continuing to show up.
Yeah. Now, talking about going back to the 10-year sobriety, because again, that is huge. I don't think the average person understands the struggle of addiction, whether that's drugs, alcohol, or whatever. There's so many addictions out there. But you are 10 years sober, which you haven't touched a drop of alcohol in 10 years. Which, more like, there are a lot of addictions that people recognize are very unhealthy. Sex addicts, drug addicts. We know people who are both. Yet, alcoholics, I said it weird, alcoholics...
Everyone who knows us both, we're not talking about you.
Or maybe we are. But for alcoholism, it's almost... I mean, look, dude, I've been in South America for 3 years. I've definitely met my share of drug addicts. Para mi latinos, te amo. But...
Soy poquito... habla... yeah.
Okay, gringo. But... alcoholism is, I think, one of the more accepted, in some ways, addictions, because it's so normal that, hey guys, let's go to the bar this weekend. Or, I'm just going to have a glass of wine with dinner. So how do you navigate those waters of being completely sober and then going out with friends who are not?
So it's like a muscle. Like, for anyone who's not struggling with addiction or anything like that, think about it like when you learn to put down boundaries. The first time you learn to put it down, you make a big announcement to all of your friends that you're currently putting down boundaries. And somebody says, some girl messages you, hey, we should hang out. And you're like, actually, no, I think we need to set some boundaries here. And eventually it becomes a muscle that you keep to your boundaries, whether, without people actually realizing it. Like, you don't have to be so obvious about things. Mm-hmm. It's not such a big deal anymore. So alcoholism is the same thing. Like, the beginning, it was very hard. I had to figure out excuses of like why you don't want to drink. Once you realize, like, the fact that somebody's going to be so pushy to make me have a drink shows that they're going through something.
It says more about them than about
Like
you.
if I choose not to eat pepper at the table,
Mm-hmm.
like if I, there's a salt and pepper shaker and I only want to have salt on my food and not pepper, no one's going to argue with me about it. So why would anyone argue with me over drinking? And then I started learning to come up with really funny excuses. Like I keep Shabbat, and but I dress like sort of like I don't. And so I was at a meal with a couple of very yeshivish people,
Mm-hmm.
and they were going through bottles. Like these yeshiva kids were going through bottles.
Can we talk about the alcoholism in the yeshivish community?
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Okay.
And they were just going through bottles, and they kept asking me. They didn't know that I was sober, and I wasn't interested in talking about it. The person whose meal it was knew, and he was laughing. He thought it was hilarious. So I just eventually they kept asking me, why didn't you want to drink? So I said I'm driving. It was Friday night. I said I have to drive, and they just believed me because I had a colored shirt on. Like it works. I don't care what they think of me. These 4 kids just went through 4 bottles of vodka. I don't care what they think of me. I promise you. And eventually it just becomes a muscle where the question doesn't have to get asked. Where like I could be in a club tomorrow partying my face off with no drinks and no one will assume that I need a drink. I also happen to prefer not going to clubs. That's just it's too loud for me. But I go to bars all the time. I have the time of my life. I have a good life that I really, really enjoy, where I spend the majority of it with people who aren't sober.
Yeah.
Not majority, but maybe about half. But if I could pivot, the people that are truly struggling, yes, people who are struggling with addiction are struggling. The people who are probably equally struggling are their friends and family, because when an alcoholic, it was a few weeks ago where I was on a group, and there's very nice people, very special people on this group, and they started raising money to buy a guitar for somebody who said that if someone buys him a guitar, it'll help him with his alcoholism. And I'm like, sounds like somebody wants a free guitar, and the people didn't really understand.
Was he Jewish?
Yeah, and the people didn't really understand because they were trying to do someone a favor, and they started saying, "Look, it's unclear what people need to get over their addiction," and the truth is that it really isn't. And the person who was asking for the guitar, he knew what was going on. He knew that he was just trying to get something free. The people who are on the other side and sober, they know what's going on. The people who don't know what's going on are the people who are stuck in the middle, who are taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why it's hard for sober people to explain to regular people what works and what doesn't work. I don't know why.
I think
I think regular people have a hard time grasping something that's out of their reach. And it's like that with all mental health, really.
I think it's that with everything. We are, as humans, we have a very hard time conceptualizing something that's unknown to us. And being an alcoholic is so unknown to so many people. And what makes it even more unknown is like, how can you be an alcoholic? Like, I go for a beer and I have 1 or 2 beers at night, or I have a glass of scotch or whatever it is, and I function. I'm I don't have any problems. I don't understand how that person has a problem.
Right. So if it helps, I'm going to explain a little bit
Please.
about my journey. The person who was really suffering during my drug and alcohol abuse wasn't me. It was the people around me. Mm-hmm. I only suffered when I wasn't using. That's when I suffered, because I was born into a body that did not know how to live in the real world. I burnt my hand when I was 6 years old, and after they bandaged it up, I felt a pain in my stomach that stayed with me until I was 11 and had my first drunk. I say my first drunk and not my first drink because I did drink beforehand. But the first time I got good and drunk was when I was 11. And that was the first time that pain went away. Well, so clearly it was an emotional pain.
You also had a very difficult family life growing up, home life growing up?
It wasn't the best. It wasn't the easiest. No. Um, but I'll say if you put me into any family, I would have
Mm-hmm.
been the way I am. I didn't know how to. They say that there's different pains in the body reflect different emotions, and that the fear of
Yeah.
rejection is right here, and that's what I had
Okay.
with me my whole life. Um, I had the fear of rejection because I didn't know, I didn't think I fit in anywhere. I spent my entire childhood thinking I wasn't popular, and then when I was older, I met people who were in my class, and they mentioned that I was. It's just a common misconception that's quite common amongst alcoholics. We just don't know how to be in our own body.
Mm-hmm.
Simple tasks are very complicated for us because the way our minds work is we overcomplicate situations simply because of how selfish we are. Like we think so much about ourselves that we don't have the mental capacity to do proper normal tasks
Mm-hmm.
just like other people. Um, and that's as much as I'll say on that matter. But for people out there who are trying to help their friends, the thing that concept that is spoken about, that it's there's this thing. Step one is there's this thing called alcoholism. Makes no sense. Have some self-control. Step two of understanding is you know what? Maybe there's something that's actually out of their control. Nebuch, really, we don't understand. We're just here to help. We're going to help in any way possible. It's mamish life and death. And step three is to understand that there's a middle ground. There are actual statistics out there available on Google.com of what works and what doesn't work for an alcoholic. And buying someone things isn't going to work, and sometimes giving them attention isn't going to work. And I don't want anyone to go out there and call themselves an enabler, because people are not enablers. People are normal human beings that care for other human beings and want to do something to help.
Mm-hmm.
But there are numbers out there. There are studies. There's a great study that I helped somebody put together. There's studies on what works and what doesn't work. It's very simple. Meaning it's not always simple, but a lot of times it is. And a lot of times there's again, I'm leaving out details on purpose, but like there are statistics out there on what works. And
Mm-hmm.
if you want to help your friend, there are people who know, and they're not professionals. They're sober people. They can see through certain things, and that's all. And they're not, and they shouldn't claim to be professionals. They're not. They just know something that you might not. And it really it hurts to see friends and family of struggling drug addicts suffer the way that they do, trying to do anything in their power to make their family member or friend better, to no avail. And
Yeah.
then the solution always comes at some like cheap. It just comes for free almost. And
I think that's also a mistake that a lot of people make is when getting and giving advice. They always think I need to get advice from the professional, from the person who has it all figured out, or I need to figure it out before I can give advice. All you really need to either give or receive advice is you just need to be 2 or 3 steps ahead of the person seeking advice.
yeah,
Right?
I
I
like
have
that.
I have seen people build multi-million-dollar businesses off of giving advice to people who are just 2 or 3 steps behind them. In the case of alcoholics, right? The sober person, yeah, they're not a psychologist or a therapist who has studied, addiction and understands. No, they're just 2 or 3 steps ahead of the person who's currently an alcoholic, or currently deep in the throes of addiction. They're more than capable of getting advice, and I think more people need to recognize, because there's so many ways that you can also that you can learn from someone, especially somebody who was a former addict. They understand it on a level also, just because it's a lived experience, as opposed to someone who studied everything from a textbook but didn't live the experience.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think that I think it's very true, and I think like I spoke to a friend the other week who was talking to me about her dating life, and I'm not a dating anything because I'm single, so I don't like to think of myself as having any success rate. But if I point things out, then it's what to think about. And she was mentioning that guys seem to stay away from her because she seems too intense, because she keeps talking about her. She used the word mashpia, but it was like her Rebbitzin, sort of her female mentor, and I said to her, whatever. I said, maybe it's not the best approach to mention that first thing. It's kind of intimidating. Like, I said, that'll put me off, and I think I'm a serious guy.
I would say, just the little knowledge I have of your dating history is you come across
It's a
very
mess. I'm joking.
you come across very intense in the beginning.
Yeah, I come on really strong. It's anyone who's dated me, it's true. Let's not deny it over here. It's okay. Anyways, but I
Which
mentioned to her, I said about your mentor. Like, if I had a business coach for a couple of years and I wasn't successful in business, I would get a new business coach. If the industry that claims to be professionals in the world of addiction hasn't produced successful results, I would get a new industry or start looking for advice elsewhere. And I think it's so intense and so true, and it's so like but it's life and death. It's complex. It's life and death. Look at statistics. Look at numbers. If you want to actually help people, like stop doing it in a way that hasn't worked. Like, you're not going to be the first one.
Well, I think also, and we can get into this in a later episode, because I think we do need to start wrapping this one up.
Probably.
But I think it's just there is a crisis of identity in general in Western civilization. And I think that contributes to a lot of the issues that people have, mental health, addiction, stuff like that, where people just don't know who they are.
How does that contribute?
Because it's a retreat. That's
why people get stuck in addiction?
I think so.
Maybe.
It's an escapism.
Have you ever heard about this rat park where they did the study on rats and they gave rats cocaine? They put rats in cages alone. They gave them cocaine, and every rat used the cocaine until it died. And then they made a place where they put cocaine and regular water, but they put all the rats together, and they made this incredible park where they all played together, and none of the rats used the cocaine.
Yeah.
It's very simple, camaraderie and fellowship. And to people out there who aren't in addiction, it's very important to have a community. You want to have a community. You want to have people that you can fall back on, and can be there for. You want to be a member an upstanding member of a community.
No man is a fortress. We are not meant to stand alone.
No.
Yeah.
Being a lone wolf is a weakness, in my opinion. It's not a strength.
I agree with that, actually. We are the idea that, I can't rely on anyone, I need to stand by myself, comes from deep-rooted insecurity.
And delusion. You think you can rely on yourself more than you can rely on others?
No, right? Every person fails in life. Every person has moments where falling back on others helps them get through. And to say that you are so different than every other fucking human who has ever lived is the height of ego. Well, anyways, I think we've been running about 45 minutes now.
Yeah.
So I just want to
Also, just one thing I want to clarify.
Please.
Is that also forget about a lot of reason that people don't get a community is not because they think that they can handle it alone, is also because they feel like they don't fit in anywhere. And yeah, I think I know a thing or two about not fitting in, but
Same.
When there's a will, there's a way. When you want to find a community, you can find a community.
Yeah.
And if you look for similarities, you'll find them instead of looking for differences.
I agree, and we can touch about this on another episode of our backgrounds and how we were both the odd kid out growing up. And I think we can touch upon this in another episode, but it's how we were both not the popular kid growing up.
Right.
And now looking at us, we're both like we've both been told, we're charismatic, we're outgoing, we're social, we make friends easily. So it's all about the growth. It's about that journey of finding the places where people accept you, and more importantly, accepting yourself, that allows you to show up in a way where others want to accept you.
Yeah.
And anyways, we're running about 45 minutes now. Bit long for our first inaugural episode, but I really enjoyed it, Shmuli. Thank you for joining me.
Same. Thank you.
And
Thank you to the listeners.
Yeah, and thank you
I don't know where
to
you guys are, but
Thank
you
you
said
to-
you're in like the box. or
thank
something.
thank you to our listeners, and those who encouraged us and are encouraging us. We appreciate you. Thank you. And I think the next episode, which is always a fun topic, is the complications and the hardship of dating.
Dating.
And just the fun and the laughter that it causes looking back. And I think we both, thank God we've both had healthy dating lives.
By healthy, he means robust.
Speak for yourself. Okay, a gentleman never kisses and tells.
I was talking about kissing.
What's the point of dating then?
On to the next. Okay.
So I think we'll discuss that in the next episode. Want to leave you all with a joke, though. Shmuley, what do you call a one-legged Chinaman? Taiwan shoe.
Taiwan shoe. You know what you call a woman with one leg?
What?
Eileen.
What did Mario say when he broke up with Peach? It's not you. It's me, Mario. All right, we will see you guys soon, and we appreciate you watching.